All right, well, here we are, everyone. We're at our webinar co-sponsored by WILF US section, Guan, and the World Beyond War, WBW, on the topic of militarizing the Baltic Sea and its cost in terms of global peace and security, and also the risks and damage to the environment. Well, before I get to any of our speakers, I want to ask you all to turn off your microphones at the start of this meeting, which is now. And then I will go into introductions. Since Oleg has his slides up, I will probably start with Oleg, Professor Oleg Bodrov. He is a physicist, ecologist, and a peace activist who lives in Russia. Oleg chairs the Council of the Southern Coast of the Gulf of Finland, which is interregional between St. Petersburg and the Leningrad Oblast. He is on the board of the International Peace Bureau. Oleg coordinates the Baltic Civil Peace Initiative, which is comprised of ecologists working to preserve the environment and peace. He has given talks in Hiroshima, Nagasaki, Fukushima, across Europe, in Paris, Boston, New York, and at the UN. He is also a screenwriter and a filmmaker, and he has won awards, which I don't have time to go into, but you can look him up in many countries for his filmmaking. I will start with this introduction to Oleg Bodrov, who we're very proud and honored to have speaking to us today. And then when he completes his talk, I will do the introduction for Agneta Norberg. We also have two speakers who will give brief remarks. That's Charlotte Dennett and Tamara Lawrence. So I will introduce each of these after they're ready to speak. But now, with this introduction, I will turn it over to our friend and colleague, Professor Oleg Bodrov. Thank you very much for coming, Oleg.
Listen me?
Yes.
Sorry, colleagues.
Yes, go ahead.
Do you listen?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
I can start, yes?
Yes, please start. Da.
Okay. First of all, thank you for the invitation. Dear colleagues, sisters, and in the peace movement. Today I will tell you about the events that have already taken place in the Baltic Sea and that they mean for us. This is not simply to analysis of the disaster. It is an attempt to understand how civil society can become to architect a new peaceful reality for our common Baltic home. Just a moment. After Chernobyl accident, I decided to left nuclear sector and understood that radiation no borders, that security cannot be national, it is only global. Since then, I have been building bridges between people to protect our common home, Baltic Sea. I am deeply convinced true security is born not from weapons, but from trust, dialogues, and the shared care for nature. The Baltic Sea is our shared home for 90 million peoples from 9 countries. It is shared social ecological system. I will take 27 years for the Baltic Sea water for fully recovered. We depend on the health of the sea. We eat its fish, breathe its air, and relax on the shores. If environmental problem arises, in the one part of the sea, it's harm everyone in the region. In March and April 2026, hundreds of combat drones attacked oil terminals in the port of the Ust-Luga and Primorsk, located near the Estonian and Finnish borders. The fires lasted about 1 week. According to the independent expert, the damaged storage tanks may have contained up to 64,000 cubic meters of petroleum products. This is approximately the equivalent of 240 Olympic-size swimming pools. Tanker ships, fuel tanks, and processing facilities burned. A plume of black smoke was visible from Finland and Estonia. This was not just a fire or a military incident. It had turned into the full-scale environmental disaster. The burning oil releases carbon dioxide, soot, and powerful cancerogens. I estimated that the carbon dioxide emission from these fires during the week were approximately equal the emission from all gasoline-powered passenger cars in Estonia for 9 months and from Finland for 4 months. The toxic smoke plume extended over 200 kilometers, covering St. Petersburg and reaching Finland and Estonia. In Sosnovy Bor, where I live, there was oil rain. The air quality index in St. Petersburg rose dangerous level. There was the export of disaster to international borders. But the most dangerous damage was done to the water and the most critical time for the year. Late March marks the start of the Baltic hearing and smelt spawning season, as well as the migration of young Baltic salmon from Ust-Luga River to the sea. Right now, hundreds of thousands of migration birds, swans, geese, and ducks are stopping at the Ramsar wetland on the Kurgalsky Peninsula and Berezovy Islands near the damaged harbors. These birds need the rest before the long flight across the White Sea into the Arctic. This is a vital filling station for the East Atlantic flying. When oil entered into the water, they dispersed the entire food chain in the ecosystem. Even the optimistical estimation, the volume of the water contaminated to level dangerous to the marine life is comparable to the entire volume of the Gulf of Finland. Several weeks passed, black clump of fuel oil were discovered into the coast of Estonian Lehemäe National Park. Estonian expert officially confirmed that it was fuel from the Ust-Luga Volunteers from Estonia collected over 760 kilograms of contaminated material. Later, oil contaminated found in Estonia, in Finland. So what did official representatives do? Russian authorities downplayed the consequences, calling them insignificant. Pollutions from the Baltic Sea states commented on the events in geopolitical context, but almost no one called the incident like environmental disaster. HELCOM, the Baltic Marine Environmental Protection Commission, is paralyzed by the political crisis. Russia withdrew from the Ramsar Convention, but all official mechanisms remained silent. Hundreds of ordinary people, Russian and Estonian volunteers, headed to the shores. In the Leningrad region, they collected about 1 ton of the contaminated material. It was an act of the love. It is proof that grassroots cooperation possible even when politicians remain silent. And now I will tell you about what keeps we awake at night. Drones were flying and exploding not only in the ports, 606 kilometers, 60 kilometers from my city, but also in the immediate close to the largest cluster of the Baltic Sea in my city, Sosnovy Bor. There are located 4 units of the Leningrad nuclear power plant and the temporary storage facilities for spent nuclear fuel. It is located 90 meters from the shores of the Gulf of Finland, and it was not designed for the withstand military impacts. In the photograph, I am showing you that swans flight very close with this area, and it is high risk not only for the birds but for the people too. According to the International Atomic Energy Agency, if the military were destroy the nuclear power plants, spent nuclear fuels facilities, protective measures, including the evacuation of the people, would be approximately required at the distance up to 200 kilometers. And if it happened with the Leningrad nuclear power plant, approximately 8 million people in Russia, 1 million in Estonia, and 1.5 million in Finland would be affected. This would be humanitarian catastrophe not only for the Russia, but for the whole Baltic Sea region. But strike on the single storage facility, not the end, because the beginning, it will be beginning of the uncontrolled escalation in the Baltic Sea region, where we have more than 30 nuclear reactors, and it is high risk that it will be destroyed. In the event of a military conflict between NATO and Russia, not only facilities in Sosnovyy Bor, but also in Finland, Sweden, Lithuania, Germany would be at risk. An important detail, the decision about the strike would be made by people 1,000 kilometers from the Baltic Sea, but radiative contamination would remain forever in our shores, Baltic home, shared Baltic home. In such war, there would be no winners, only sufferers for the generation to come. The event in Ust-Luga, Sosnovyy Bor, and the event in Ust-Luga and Sosnovyy Bor are not just distant memory. They are a lesson for everyone living in the shores of the Baltic Sea. Military logic leads to destruction of our shared social ecological system. You cannot, and we cannot, protect our coastline by destroying your neighbors, because wind and currents know no borders. Through security is shared, ecological and human security. It can only achieve without weapons, but which with care for our shores, sea, air, and human lives. The great physicist Albert Einstein once expressed an idea that in political context maybe sound like this. If system has a crisis, the solution cannot be found by those who created it. New people with new thinking are needed. Today, we, civil society, must formulate demand on such new politicians. Our demand is simple. The health, our common sea, and the safety of citizens on our shores are paramount. What can we do right now without waiting for the intergovernmental agreements? First, launch a people map of coast pollution, combining the efforts of volunteers from Russia, Estonia, and Finland. This is experience already there. Second, fishermen from the Baltic countries can issue a joint appeal to HELCOM demanding an objective assessment of fish stocks. And third, organize online photo exhibition shows unite countries. Those photo of students' favorite sports on the Baltic coast. We organize similar exhibition for the students from the University of Connecticut in the United States and young Russian students from St. Petersburg.
Oleg,
Yeah.
do you mean to change the slides because we're still here on Einstein?
So I changed the slide. Do you listen the change?
This
Or
one,
not?
yeah, we see a new one. Yeah.
Yeah. So some moral imperative. We need specific demands from governments. First, establish 50 kilometers zones free of new oil and military infrastructure according protection nature areas, nature reserve, wildlife, sanctuaries, and Ramsar Convention sites. Second, to resume cooperation within HELCOM on nuclear and oil safety issues, independent of any political consideration. This is not a matter for the national pride. It is a matter of survival. Our long-term goal transformed to the Baltic Sea into the Sea of Peace and free from the military logic. So we fishermen, mothers, scientists, doctors, activists are through to demand of our shares Baltic home. We official institution collapse. When official institution collapse, civil solidarity becomes the last barrier before catastrophe. Let's to stay building this solidarity today. Let's each of us say, I am the Baltic. Thank you, colleagues. Sorry, my English not very well, but I can send you the text of my presentation and you can read more carefully. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much, Oleg, and I am the Baltic. So there you go. We appreciate that. Yes, I've been to the Baltic. My late husband was Swedish, and we know the Baltic very well.
Thank you.
I want to now introduce our other guest speaker, who is, let me get to the right page in my notes. I should have had it ready. Sorry. Find it. Oh, here she is. All right. Thank you very much, Oleg. And now I will introduce Agneta Norberg, who is a very well-known Swedish activist for peace. She is the co-creator of Women for Peace in Sweden. Agneta marched from Copenhagen to Paris in 1981 and also marched from Sweden to Moscow in 1982. She is a 20-year member of the Global Network Against Nuclear Weapons and Nuclear Power. And she got the Peace in Space Award from the Global Network and many other awards. So, Agneta, do you want to make yourself visible now?
Yes, am I here?
There you are. Yes, and we should comment on your little wreath, because this is a very big holiday in Sweden, is it not?
Yes. Do you see me? I mean,
We see
I
you.
hope I am visible. Yeah.
You're visible.
Thank you. This is what I have because it's a midsummer in Sweden. So my granddaughter Elvira, she did this to me and put on my head yesterday. So I wanted to show the holiday and the tradition. And you see a map behind me. I wasn't able to form pictures like Aljek because I think I should be a technician, and we are not. But the first thing I want to show you, it's rather depressing, but I wanted to keep it up. Do you see this book? Do you see it?
No, we don't see it because it's covered by
Okay.
your background.
Yes, then I can say it's a little booklet that has been useful for people around Europe and where I've been lecturing. The North, a platform for warfare towards Russia. So I will contribute with a rather depressing story about the peaceful North, like Sweden has been famous for being an extraordinary power for peace. But now I have to inform you that Sweden has transformed to a strong military force. The same with Finland, Norway, and Sweden, but Sweden is leading. Sweden is leading this aggressive, stupid, I should say, propaganda towards Russia. I myself was, like most of Swedish people in that time, but in 1970, I traveled to Leningrad, by that time Leningrad, now St. Petersburg. It totally changed my life. So I say to people, travel and see for yourself. This was an eye-opener, which was such a tragic, as it showed me the losses of the war towards the Nazis. Leningrad has suffered for 3 years of horrible infringing. It was such I was brought up in the school with the knowledge that the United States of America came with their guns like this in Normandy and walked ashore and saved us from the Nazis. So from 1970, I have been working, talking, traveling, writing, discussing, screaming sometimes of anger because the knowledge. And what do I consider the worst part of this warmongering? It is our mass media. Without media, no war can start, in my understanding. They point out the enemy and they inform, like our Swedish media now is informing about the horrifying, dangerous Russian, which soon or later will come and take us all. That they have been saying in this media since as long as I live. And I will be 90 years old next year. So it is a lot of years that have been propaganda, excuse me, about the Russians' danger. And I say again, as I always say, learn Russian. Здравствуйте. Скажите, пожалуйста, где? I learned some Russian. It's extremely important to be able to say, Здравствуйте. Здравствуйте. That means good day. But it's rather difficult to say, Здравствуйте. If everybody could say at least, Здравствуйте, it could be something to start. Now, NATO regularly conduct major warfare and interoperability exercise in the Baltic states, in the Baltic Sea, I mean. These drills often involve over a dozen allied nations. The most prominent and relevant naval exercises in the Baltic is Baltops. Baltops. It's the US military sea exercise with a lot of, I think they were 10 different countries last time in the Eastern Sea. You see it? Oh no, there. There is the Eastern Sea. And They are, where was I? These exercises has ramped up significantly in recent years as NATO integrates new Nordic members like Sweden and Finland. So fundamentally altering the security posture of the region. We have become a dangerous part of the world. Earlier, we were the peaceful part of the world, the North, not now. I'm sad to say that, but we have to be open and truthful. Otherwise, we can't start working. And the Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, with coastlines to the Eastern Sea, have made small efforts to scrutinize their Nazi part. Now I come to a little bit of history. These small countries, with Lithuania, they, at the worst, they were able, without any help of German Nazis, to murder 200,000 Jews and communists during World War II in the beginning. So these small countries have not discussed their history, their Nazi history, like Germany actually has done. Now we know that Callas, who is the head of, I don't know, European something, and von der Leyen, they are active anti-Russian. Earlier they were anti-Soviet, now they are anti-Russian. We have to understand how Europe is formed and what they really is doing. Europe is a war center in a way, with all these warmongering around. We have to keep up and see what Europe has become, European Union. Where am I now? In 2004, the Baltic states joined NATO. The Russian population living in all these states faced hardship in these states. During the years since the wall fell, there has been as mentioned above, an increase in militarizing all Baltic states. But one thing is as an obstacle. Russia is rich of gas and oil, and it has been an important supplier. Now I talk about now, an important supplier of gas to the Baltic and above all to Germany. But now the new Germany today, I would say, the new warmongering is the United States of America. And it doesn't tolerate that Germany receives gas from Russia. So they have to stop it. And what did they do? I'm not sure about this. Pipelines were deployed, and to how they destroyed it. The United States of America destroyed the pipelines, so they couldn't export gas through these from Russia to Germany. But they denied immediately and said, this is just stupid. We haven't done anything. But thanks to what was his name now? He said, he revealed that this is absolutely stupid because it was the United States who did this. I forgot his name, but I might have to. Seymour Hersh, there it comes. But Seymour Hersh, you have heard about him? the investigative journalist said that Biden administration with destroyed the pipeline North Stream. It was an act of war. I'm not sure how much time I have, but the Baltic Sea area has turned from being a low tension into an area of high tension between Russia and the West. This is a dangerous development. What we are witnessing is a Cold War #2 situation. The Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, joined NATO in 2004, yes, I've said this, and Finland and Sweden in 1924. This strongly increased the tension between Russia and the northern countries. I must say that we have been learned that we have a strong defense to put millions in it. The defense, we have to be defended from Russia. Just such a stupidity. When the wall fell and they could read the documents, it was no sign. They couldn't find anything in these documents that the Moscow or the Russia planned to attack Sweden. They couldn't find anything. So we have to be understand that they are prepared to tell lies to the military industrial complex. They tell and give the journalist information, and they are really dangerous. So we have to stop listening to what mass media and tell us about who is threatening us and who is threatening the during the in the Baltic. Now I heard something in Swedish media that the Russians are a threat to the Baltic. It's a stupidity. It's just the contrary. The Baltic is a very dangerous launching pad from both Germany and the Baltic states. It's just stupidity. Earlier we were a kind of peaceful coexistence, but they try to whip up. And I'm sorry that I depress you with these information, but I have to do that because otherwise we can't just make resistance. So I will end up here. The Eastern Sea had since many years been the area for US huge sea war games. Today, United States is more eager to be militarily present in China. So they have given the power, or they have said Germany has to be there because they have to be in China. So you can imagine that now this certainly reminds the Russians, the Russian population, of the horrifying memories from World War II, when the Nazis 3-year siege of Leningrad, when 1 and 1.5 million civilians and military died during the 872 days of German siege of Leningrad. That's the memory they have in Leningrad. And with that, I stop here and you can have questions. Thank you.
I want to thank you very much, Agneta, for a wonderful and very highly informed presentation. Many of these facts are probably not known to our American and other viewers and audience here. And I thank you very much for that. And also, Professor Oleg, thank you as well. I have a couple other people that we're going to give small remarks. And are you there? Let's see. I'm going to check and see if who's logged in here. Tamara, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
Okay, would you like an introduction?
Well, actually, I'd love to be made a co-host so that I can share
You
a
are
few
a co-host.
slides. Oh, I am?
Yes. All
Okay,
four.
no, I think let's not waste the time. I can put a link to my website in the chat, but I'd like to show a few slides. So I'm just going to share it right now. Just one moment. Okay, share. So I want to talk very quickly about NATO's and Canada's role in militarizing the Arctic and why there's this urgent need for peace and cooperation. And I'll begin with adding on to what Oleg says, that we cannot deal with our environmental and climate challenges if we don't have peace and cooperation. There was a report that came out in the news in February about how the Baltic Sea is struggling in its recovery, despite the fact that there's been these efforts around conservation, and there's a number of organizations that are trying to improve the sea. But the Baltic Sea is as Oleg explained, is being further degraded, from contamination, from climate change, dead zones, and also from this militarization. So I want to show you a picture of what this militarization looks like, and this is a picture from NATO's eastern flank that shows the military assets in the Baltic states and the southern European states. When this map came out, Finland and Sweden were not yet members of the alliance, and now that they are, the Baltic Sea is completely run by NATO members, and so now it's being called a NATO lake. So you can just see the heavy military presence, all of the bases and the submarines, the missile launchers, the warships, all of the soldiers in the region, heavily militarized. And then you can see it's heavily militarized by air assets, all of the fighter jets and bombers and surveillance and drones. And you can see this remark in the middle of the slide. It says around 30 Allied surveillance and fighter jets are in the air at any one time. So just imagine the climate and environmental impacts of this intense, heavy militarization of the region, right along Russia's border, and a ton of financial resources, human resources are being, spent for this militarization, and really creating a new NATO iron wall against Russia. Now, in November of 2022, I did a month-long tour. I went from Egypt, where I was at the climate summit, and I did a tour, a fact-finding mission. I went to Russia, Finland, Latvia, Poland, and Romania. And when I was in Latvia, I stopped to have a look at Canada's base called Camp Adazi, right outside of Latvia's capital, Riga. And I went and I stood outside the big entrance with my sign, "No to NATO, yes to peace and cooperation." And this base is where Canada is leading a NATO multinational battle group, and it has expanded a lot since Canada established this base in 2017. And a number of the NATO allies, about a dozen, are involved in this base. And every year they are intensely training. So for instance, they have these crystal arrow exercises. This is tank warfare training, and you can see there's the tanks, armored vehicles, and helicopters trying to integrate the military alliance in war making, extremely environmentally and climate destructive. You can see the compaction and destruction of the forest, from this type of exercise. And then this is a satellite picture that I took that shows that I got off of Google Satellite. And it shows you where I was in the bottom left-hand corner, where I was with my banner, Stop NATO. You can see, and there on the left, but you can see this huge expanse of degraded forest, this land that has been wounded, the scarring from the tanks and the armored vehicles, and they're shooting and shelling and launching rockets and practicing target training and firing on this land. Instead of trying to like remediate this land, it's just becoming more degraded. Every year, you know, they've got this Iron Spear exercises. So you can see the Canada's flag over a tank there, moving a lot of materiel in the past 4 years since 2022. And then this month, as Agneta said, there is the annual BALTOPS, the Baltic Operations, a NATO naval exercise with a lot of the submarines, amphibious vessels, warships, and just it's compounding the environmental degradation of the sea. In May of this year, Canada announced a new defense partnership with Latvia, where they're going to do even more militarization with cybersecurity, electronic warfare, and also trying to ramp up weapons production in Latvia. So you can see our foreign minister, Anita Anand, with the foreign minister of Latvia, two women standing in front. It's so shameful, of a NATO flag, Latvia flag, and Canadian flag. Canada has now increased the number of soldiers at this base, and it's become, very much a battle group. And then in just 3 days ago, NATO issued an announcement, and you can read about how it's further strengthening its eastern flank. And this very much includes, as I explained, the Baltic Sea area with more cyber, more land forces, more air forces. And what is all of this for? Well, we need to be clear-eyed and honest about what NATO is preparing. And we are very much on a track, a very dangerous course of preparing for a war with Russia. This is what the US ambassador to NATO has said on social media. I encourage you to follow the announcements that he's making, Elbridge Colby is making, other of the US military leaders are making. He said, under President Trump, NATO is returning to its warfighting roots. Allies must turn their 5% commitment into a capacity to fight. This summer's summit in Ankara will be a report card on allies' ability to turn commitments into capabilities. So capabilities to fight, to plan for warfighting. This is just crazy. And what's happening, this militarization that we see in the Baltic Sea, is very much related to this militarization that we see in the Arctic. I just quickly share with you this article that I wrote that came out in Ricochet Media about how Canada, because of NATO, is militarizing the Arctic, which is struggling itself because of climate change. Our women's organizations, the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom Canada and the Canadian Voice of Women for Peace, a few years ago, we launched this campaign, Stop the Militarization of the North, Canada Out of NORAD and NATO, Make the Arctic a Zone of Peace. And I also just want to remind you all that 2 years ago, I had the pleasure of being with Oleg in St. Petersburg for this and Ula, I think Ula is also on this call, this fantastic conference called Peace, Nature, and Cooperation in the Baltic and Arctic Seas. We did a statement, and you can go to our website. What we need to envision for this region is not this militarization that we see that divides the continent, but we need to remind ourselves of the connections that we have between Europe and Russia, all of these family and friendship ties. And so we need to imagine peace and peace building. I just want to remind you that next month is going to be the NATO summit against NATO summit in Turkey, and there's a big protest planned for that. So stay tuned. We need to work together to abolish NATO and turn the Baltic Sea into a zone of peace and cooperation, as well as the Arctic Sea. So maybe just one resources, if I can have just one extra second to just say that this book is so important, What I Saw in Ukraine by Benoit Paré. I can maybe explain more about it in the Q&A. But friends, please get involved in the Global Women United for Peace Against NATO and do an action where you are against NATO in solidarity with the counter summit and protest that's taking place in Turkey next month. Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you very, very much, Tamara. You're just a fantastic speaker, and you have really collected a lot up there in the Baltic region. So we are so pleased to have you here today. And now, because we're a little bit short on time, I want to turn this right over to Charlotte Dennett. Are you here, Charlotte?
I'm here.
Okay, Charlotte Dennett, who is an attorney and investigative journalist who started in the Mideast and an author. She began, began reporting in Beirut, Lebanon on society and architecture for the Daily Star and other publications. Her books include Follow the Pipelines, Uncovering the Mystery of a Lost Spy and the Great Game for Oil, The Crash of Flight 3804, and another about her late father, I believe, who died. And Thy Will Be Done, The Conquest of the Amazon, Nelson Rockefeller, and Evangelism in the Age of Oil. Woo. Okay, so Charlotte, I'll just hand it off to you. There's much more I could say about you, but let's just get on with it here.
Well, this has been a wonderful presentation. What I would urge viewers is to get really familiar with the maps. I'm so appreciative of the maps that the two presenters showed. And when I was looking at the militarization of the Baltic, I had to get a fuller picture because I know that that's happening in the Arctic too. And I found an article where I'm just going to show it here. And if you look at oil in the Arctic, you will find it's called NATO's and Russia's militarization of the Arctic. And what this map shows is that all along the Russian coast, there's military installations, and I think the West is sort of catching up on it. But it's all linked. And I got into the Great Game for Oil when I was studying the death of my father in a plane crash after visiting Saudi Arabia, trying to map the route of the Trans-Arabian Pipeline, which became, the pipeline became transformative. It turned the United States into a superpower. It almost terminated in Haifa, but instead it terminated in Lebanon. And man, when I saw those pictures of the destruction in where was that, Latvia, I think you said, yes. You saw that whole range of destruction. All I could think about was Gaza and Lebanon. What is this really about? It is not just about getting rid of Hamas or Hezbollah. It's because Netanyahu wants an energy corridor to go all the way up the Eastern Mediterranean. He's dreamed of this for years. I could go into it. It's in my book. So now, thanks to your presentations, I'm sort of expanding my knowledge base. And the one thing that hasn't been mentioned, and I sad to say, it seldom gets mentioned. Why? Why is this going on? Why are oil installations being hit? Because it's the fuel of the military. All these strikes, you may have noticed, drone strikes on Russian oil facilities and the vice versa. That's what they're hitting. And every once in a while, you'll actually find an article that states it clearly. And I think it was Newsweek that came out and said, well, I don't have it right now, but the whole point is to cripple their military, because the military depends on oil, depends on gas. This is now you've also got data centers, AI data centers, and they depend on natural gas. So the drill baby drill phenomenon that we're seeing with Trump is all about this. You know, the destruction of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline was considered one of the greatest infrastructure attacks in history. And the whole purpose of it was so that Europe would not be supplied with cheap Russian gas. And so what we've seen is they're bypass games. If you look on a map, they're in my book. I have 12 maps in my book covering all these areas of war. And, oil is no good if it just sits in the ground. If you're a military power, you got to ship it out and use pipelines. And you got to preserve those pipelines. So the Nord Stream 1 and 2 pipelines going underneath the Baltic Sea was really alarming the U.S. And Biden even made it very clear shortly after the Russian invasion that pipeline could not function. And he was able to convince the Germans, who had favored the Nord Stream 2 pipeline into coming online. He convinced Germany to drop it. And then not long afterwards, you saw the destruction. I've been following it. They now say there's a woman who, a model, a Ukrainian model who became an expert in deep sea diving, and they're now looking at her as being one of the key players in the destruction of Nord Stream 2. So, when that happens, that was an act of war. And I have to say, I can't blame Russia for being alarmed. And it is also a war against Russia and China. It's, Henry Kissinger once said, and by the way, he was a protege of Nelson Rockefeller, whoever controls oil controls the world. And that is still the case. I might say that there is a sort of a weird blessing in disguise with regard to the closing of the Strait of Hormuz. And I think probably many of you have heard this. It's getting people to turn more and more to alternative energy. That's one thing that's happening. And by the way, there are solar-powered data centers. And solar power is becoming less expensive. And so maybe that'll be the wave of the future. On the other hand, there are also all sorts of efforts to develop alternative pipeline routes. They are described in my book. The war in Yemen, that horrible war in Yemen, one of the greatest human rights catastrophes of the around 2015, 17. Well, we've all forgotten about it. But the Saudis were going to build a pipeline that would avoid the Strait of Hormuz and exit out of southern Yemen and into eventually the Arabian Sea and the Indian Sea. So there's another pipeline scheme. It's called IMEC, India Middle East Corridor. And it's going to run underneath the Indian Ocean. And then it's going to link up to Saudi Arabia. And guess where it's going to end up? Haifa, Palestine, Israel. So that's part of the scheme. And I was able to even link that pipeline route is very similar to the pipeline route of Tapline, the Trans-Arabian Pipeline, which was finally built in 1951 after the first CIA coup, the first. It was not in Iran, it was Syria. The Syrian president did not want that pipeline terminating in Israel, and so he was overthrown. And then the CIA went ahead and put in an army chief who was okay with it ending wherever. It ended going through, guess where? The Golan Heights in Syria, and then eventually ended in southern Lebanon, which is very close to the border of Israel. That gives you sort of an overview. And yes, it is a dangerous situation, and who knows where we're going to end up.
So Charlotte, would you say that you see direct similarities between everything that's happening regarding resources and energy in the Baltic with other parts of the world that you've already studied? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's face it. I agree with the presenters about the danger, but it really is about wanting the other powers' oil. Here's the article. This was in the New York Times. I'm going to give you a date. August 26, 25. Russia and Ukraine target energy sites And it says on one of these pages, and I'll just read it real quick, and then you can apply that to the Baltic, I'm sure.
Sure. It is
Ukraine
being
has long.
applied.
What?
We are applying it to the Baltic already, yeah.
Yeah. The whole purpose of hitting these energy refineries and so on is to disrupt Russian fuel supplies for tanks and aircraft, to curb Moscow's profits from oil exports, and to disrupt the daily life for average Russians. And the same can be said about what's happening in Ukraine. And so, yeah, and now we're seeing it going into the Baltics.
Well,
I mean,
I think that this is so important because of the vast increase in the number of drones, which are also a big industry, at least in the United States, in RTX. I don't know what other companies, but it's really interesting when you can be on God on your team and also make windfall profits by all these drones. So that's a frightening thing, that it's very hard to convince people that think they're all in the right and they're also making windfall profits. So these drone strikes that are becoming like huge swarms of angry bees, and you have really put your finger on why they're headed to these industrial sites, these energy sites. So thank you very much for coming and being our third and fourth experts on this topic, both you and Tamara. I really appreciate it. So shall we open it up to the floor now? What do you think, speakers? Yes? Nod your heads.
Yeah, I think it's open
okay.
up.
All right. From the floor. Oh, and there's some applause going on there. I will try to be so I can see hands. And if you want to raise your hands physically, or I'm trying to get I'm going to see who's raising a hand.
If you can raise your hand on the screen so that it show your picture comes up to the top of the screen when you there we go. And also, if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat, and your own contact information. So if we don't get to everything, then people can get back to you with the answers if you feel like it.
I'm checking the chat, and right now I don't see anything that has a question mark. All right, so we'll go starting with the first one I see, and that's Lisa Tuskinen. Lisa, ask whatever you wish.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I'm from Finland. I live in Kotka on the south coast of Finland, by the Gulf of Finland, in the city of Kotka, which was shown even in Alex, one of the maps. And from my home, there is only 56 kilometers to the Russian border by road. And so what I'd like to say is that I don't have now map, but there have been several maps already. And if you remember then how St. Petersburg is situated in the dead end of Gulf of Finland, and it's a second important city in Russia. And Peter the Great founded St. Petersburg in 1703 as a window to Europe, to have a connection to sea. And if you see now, see how it is situated, the Gulf of Finland is very narrow. And both its north and south coasts are made by NATO countries, and the international water area in the middle of Gulf of Finland is very narrow, and it can be closed very easily. And I think that is one of the reasons that Russia must be worried about it, and that's why NATO wants to be here. And what comes to these drone attacks to Primorsk and Ust-Luga, where Russian oil refineries and ports are, as far as I have understood, about 40% of the oil export to Russia goes through Gulf of Finland and through the Baltic Sea. And that's why it is so important also for Russia. And then we have been talking about that the Baltic Sea is surrounded by NATO countries. But Finland and Sweden have recently made a defense cooperation agreement with the US, United States. And Finland will have 15 US military bases, and Sweden, I don't remember now, Wagner knows exactly, but the Scandinavian countries will have
17 US bases.
17 and altogether 46 US military bases. And now there's a map behind Agneta. There is just behind Agneta's head, there's an autonomous area of Finland, Åland, which is demilitarized zone. And then a big island just in the middle of the main bases, basin of the Baltic Sea, Gotland. Sweden had already withdrawn its military bases from Gotland, but now is building them, has already brought them back there.
I have a question. Could we keep the remarks a bit limited because we want everyone to get a chance to, have a question and answer.
But these are, I think that some points that also can explain the whole situation, why it is so tense and almost explosive. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you so much, Lisa. Questions? Anyone else? Alan Haber, you were going to bring us some good questions. Where are you, Alan?
I had to correct myself on something. I was talking about this pipeline that they're now developing that's going to connect India to Haifa.
Mm-hmm.
And it's underneath the Arabian Sea, not the Indian Sea. But anyways, undersea, then it connects to Qatar, and then it goes to Haifa. Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll make that mental adjustment, and we should get your book to get those maps. Oh, here come a couple more hands. We have Cheryl, my colleague and friend from the Disarm Committee. Go ahead, Cheryl.
Yes. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you. This has been extremely interesting, and I've taken a lot of notes. And I know you're recording this, so I'm sure we'll be able to make this available through the WILF network, especially. So just to say, the effect, of course, of having US military bases in your country puts you at greater risk for being attacked, because what you have seen in the Iran situation, that Iran was surrounded by US military bases in Kuwait and Qatar and places like that. And so, of course, when Iran was attacked, it then sent its missiles over to those US military bases in those countries, Arabic countries around it. So having US military bases does not increase or enhance your security. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Cheryl. That's a sad but very true thing. And it's also if you have a big nuclear plant in your town and, whatever, things like that. All right, so we have I'm going to go to Alan and Odile and then Agneta. First, Alan and Odile.
Well, should I speak now?
No, Alan Haber.
Yeah.
And then
Okay.
speak. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Well, I always have a question, but it seems that this conflict of military bases is all the contest of military leadership. Is there anything in the actual spirit quality of the Baltic populations that is hostile to Russia and wants to attack, or in the Russian western border areas that is hostile and wants to attack. It seems that civil society is happy to live with one another, but it is military leadership that is putting money into contested military bases. So is it the military leadership that we are looking to deal with, or is it a problem in the populations themselves?
Who wants to answer that? Oleg, can you answer that?
Well, it's military.
Anybody?
Thank you, but I think Russian civil society have no any chance now to influence to the policy in Russia, because the federal authorities is a closed system now, and unfortunately all Russian activists have no any chance to influence. But of course the Russian civil society, which is close to the Russian Estonian Russian Finnish border, don't like the situation, and in the same time there are dominate Russian business for the export to the natural resources to the Western countries, and they have no Russian citizens have no any voices to speak about this. So this is a pity, and maybe the strategy for us, it would be nice if we will re-establish the face-to-face cooperation with the civil society of the countries which is neighbors with the Russia. And in this case, it will be chance to present our common position against the militarization of this area. So this is what I can say.
Can I reply to that really quickly, to what Alan says? When I was in Latvia, I was really surprised, but maybe I shouldn't have been surprised at how my country, Canada, had really adversely influenced public discourse to be, against Russia. And the NATO countries are doing this throughout the region. They are spending a lot of money on funding media organizations, civil society organizations, journalists, academics, think tanks, to have an anti-Russia perspective, and to cause the division and the hostility. But when I was on the ground in Latvia, I noticed that a lot of people spoke Russian, especially young people. And I said to one young woman, I'm like, "Oh, you speak Russian?" And her eyes changed, and she kind of looked a little scared. She goes, "Oh, I can start speaking Latvian." So now my country is funding these programs like promoting the Latvian language or the Ukrainian language over the Russian language that people speak in their homes, to increase this hostility. So I think there's a lot of adverse external foreign interference in these countries to turn them against Russia and to prepare the ground for a coming war. And we need to do everything that we can to build bridges of peace and to try to overcome and transform this hostility.
Thank you very much, Tamara. I appreciate those good tips on what the public can do, what people to people can do. Thank you. Agneta has been patiently waiting for her turn. So Agneta, please.
Well, there have been some rumors or saying that the US bases, and they give an example of what the Qatar and all these bases in the Middle East, they don't want them. That's true, but I want you to see what Australia has become. Australia is the platform for US war in the entire China. So, and Japan is unsinkable aircraft carrier for numerous military bases, and South Korea as well, with now 28,000 US soldiers deployed recently. And the surrounding of the entire world with the US bases is a danger of the utmost, I can't say what. And now I wanted to, as I am in the board of the directors for Tamara is as well, about this, how we use space. Not we, but the military is using space. And specifically, I want to point out in the north of Sweden and northern Norway, where they have extremely important space assets to launch wars towards Russia. It has to be added. But I want to finish with another thing, is that in spite these horrifying, idiotic media hysteria, they haven't at all succeeded. They haven't succeeded as much as they wanted. Many when I talk to people in both in the peace movement and in Sun, it is an understanding. So I'm not so sad sometimes, because we know now what media is able to do. And a lot of people, I went to Russia a couple of years ago, and I was surprised. In the Red Square, I met people from the entire world. It was so, I wanted just to say something positive, that they haven't actually succeeded to make us anti-Russian totally. That's what I wanted to add. Thank you.
And I've heard recently all these reports in various US media, I can't call it up, of how isolated, that Russia isn't getting any contact with the outside. And yet, if you go to alternative sources, you see that that is not what is happening. So what you just said gets into that mix of all these different narratives coming from the West and coming from people from the global South or India. India takes a very middle line, and they often give these other perspectives. So it's very interesting.
Mm.
Any other? Charlotte.
Yeah, well, let's not forget that the American people don't like this war in Iran one bit. I mean, that's extraordinary. I mean, I have never seen an entire population react in a matter of days against this the attacks on Iran. So that's interesting. And whether there's going to be a ceasefire, however, is a whole other question. But I mean, the world is changing. I mean, I have lived with the Middle East crisis all my life, and yet never have I seen more understanding of the whole history of that part of the world, and some, critiques of Israel and its rule, especially under these right wingers, which makes it extremely dangerous. But things change, so I want to add that hopeful note.
And Alan Haber's nodding his head. I guess he's liking the hopeful note. Same here, Alan. Yeah, and the fact that we have so many new sources. I watch one, I don't know if you're familiar with it, Oleg, called Baltic Live. Oleg, have you ever heard of that? Baltic Live? I recommend it. It's on YouTube. It's someone in St. Petersburg who has been doing walking tours. All he does is walk around. He takes trips all over Russia. And he's been doing this for 12 years or more. A younger man, he's maybe 48 now, 50. And he doesn't do political stuff. He just goes to this city or that town, and most of it's in St. Petersburg. But what that does is it shows that people do not have horns and a tail. And you just see people with shopping bags, with little kids, with balloons, and it's a regular place, St. Petersburg.
A very short remark from me. And colleagues, in November in this year, I already discussed with my German colleagues, we want to organize international conference in St. Petersburg, peace conference. It will be online and offline conference. So if somebody from you will be ready to come to St. Petersburg in November, I will try to organize support for you. And of course, it will be not so easy, but it is a very good chance to meet face to face the people from St. Petersburg with the Russian people. I feel that it was very important when Tamara visited and Ula St. Petersburg. We feel that we are a team, we are family. And I think it will be important to continue this strategy, to have a meeting face to face. Thank you.
I agree. And I was trying to applaud, but you probably can't see it against my white wall there. Yes, that is the beginning of everything. And I want to go back to Jane Addams just for a moment, the founder of WILF, and one of them. There were many others, and she won a Nobel. But because the Crimean War was going on, as she was a young person, she heard about it. It had ended in the 1850s, but all of Europe was still talking about it. And she tried to find her way through all of that, the Great British Empire and Russia. And she went to Russia and visited Tolstoy. The founder of our group went to Russia, visited Tolstoy, and there's a whole chapter in her book on the settlement house in Chicago, 20 Years at Hull House, about Tolstoy and what they discussed. So this kind of thing would have Jane Addams cheering. She got a Nobel Peace Prize. She would be cheering what we're doing. So just so you know that's another positive thing. Yes, Tamara.
Yeah, I just want to echo that people-to-people diplomacy is so crucial, especially at this time where our governments are refusing to engage with Russia. One of the things that we did as WILF Canada is we sent letters to the Ukraine embassy, the US embassy, the Russian embassy, and also our own government to meet us as a women's delegation to end the war in Ukraine. And the US embassy said no, the Ukraine embassy has said no, our government has refused to meet with us in 11 years. But the Russian embassy said, yes, come in and meet with us. So we have established a little relationship with the Russian embassy. And I was actually just, was it a week and a half ago, in Ottawa to attend Russia's National Day and to meet with other diplomats. All of the other diplomats in Ottawa from the African countries, Latin American, Asian countries were at this reception. So I encourage you, if you've got a Russian embassy or consulate near you, to reach out. And also, I really encourage you, if you haven't been to Russia, to go to Russia. I went for my first time in 2022, and then I went back in 2024. I've learned so much. I'm so impressed, and I think this is one of the biggest things that we could advocate for, is for everyone we know to go there and to build bridges of peace. And then finally, I know we're running out of time. So much of the militarization and war making that we're seeing is driven because of this war in Ukraine, and they're rationalizing this militarization because of the threat from the Soviet Union and Russia. But I want to highly recommend. I've read so many books, and this book is so crucial, by Benoit Paré, What I Saw in Ukraine. He was an OSCE monitor, a French soldier, worked in NATO with UN peace support operations. Then he became an OSCE monitor. He was on the contact line in Ukraine for 7 years from 2015 to 2022. What he describes, what he saw NATO and the Ukrainian army doing is so shocking. And many times in the margin of the book, I wrote, like Israel, like Israel, like Israel. So anyways, friends, we need to really educate ourselves about this war in Ukraine and then pass on that information to others and bring this war in Ukraine to an end, the genocide in Gaza, the war in Iran, bring these wars to an end and have peace and cooperation with our Russian brothers and sisters and our Chinese and Iranian brothers and sisters. Thanks.
You're welcome, and thank you. I see someone from Tucson, Alice Wittenberg, with her hand up.
Yeah, hi. I don't have a question. I just wanted to say it's wonderful to be with other people who feel the same way I do. And the idea that Tamara just brought up of people-to-people diplomacy is such a great thing. I hope I can participate in that. And an event like this is certainly a good first step. That's all I had to say, but thank you so much, everyone, for being here.
And I want to say that Alice is the editor of our peace calendar, and she does an awful lot to promote everything that we stand for. So thank you, Alice.
Thanks.
Oh, Alan. Yeah, sorry, didn't mean to.
Yeah, well, echoing this positivity that it's the people that matter. Yeah, my view that I've been advocating is that our motto needs to be end the whole war system. This is a system of domination that we have inherited that has brought us a military institutions that have the power to provide political leadership. But the actual people, for the most part, care nothing of this conflict and want to get along like we do in a human common society. And there is indeed a morality play that is being played out in the world that may end in our total destruction, but it is the war powers against the peoples of the world or the peoples of the world against our inherited war powers. We need to change from the war system of domination and patriarchy and command to the peace system of full system cooperation, not domination, and caring and sharing and helping and healing. This is a system change that is from the family and the school and the workplace up to the political and military institutions. It's a morality play that needs to be in people's mind. Which side are you on? But also calling the war powers, the political leaders, to the peace table to challenge them. This is an opportunity to end this war system and really make a system change. It's a system change that we need, not this war, that war, the other war, because all the wars are connected. And as Charlotte so well points out, they're connected with these pipelines that feed the military. So I just put forward, end the whole war system and see it as a system change that we need applying in the Baltic as well as in China and Australia. So end the whole war system.
I'm sorry. This is a chance to put in a plug for our Disarm Committee because Alan is a regular at Disarm. And if you would like to join Wilf and become part of our Disarm Committee, you can hear Alan. He will be reporting on the progress of his big project to end the whole war system there. And thank you, Alan. We also remember that Jane Addams believed the same thing exactly that Alan is saying. And she said, we have to end the military worship of heroes. And when we cannot achieve peace within that system is precisely what Jane Addams said in her book, Newer Ideals of Peace, 1907. And she said we would have to replace all the games that boys play that are military games with something equally exciting, but it would, it would foster cooperation. So that's an old book, but it's saying the same thing that Alan is saying. And she had a lot. She was a pragmatic philosopher, and it dovetails pretty much with what Alan is proposing here. So I'd check her out because of her friendship with Tolstoy. And that was a biggie, to go over in that era over to Russia. All right, so we're kind of running a little bit late here. any final remarks from our speakers or anybody? I guess we're done. So thank you, Ellen Thomas, for making this all possible, running our tech. Thank you to Professor Oleg Bodrov,
Yeah.
Agneta Norberg, Tamara Lawrence, and Charlotte Dennett. Thank you all and everyone who came.
Thank you, colleagues, for the cooperation. I feel myself that we are part of the one peacemaker family, and thank you for this. I'm very good feeling. It is give me optimism. Thank you.
Oleg, bring our love and solidarity to the people of Russia.
Yes, definitely. And don't forget that show on YouTube, Baklakov Live. He just walks around so you can see it's just people over there, folks.
I have a sentence I learned when we marched through Moscow. I shouted in Russian, "Нет, ядерному оружию на западе и востоке, да, разоружение и мир." What did I say? No to nuclear weapons, east and west. Yes to disarmament and peace.
Oh, right. And I'm going to say, "Я люблю вас."
Я люблю.
I love you to the people of
Я люблю вас.
Люблю вас. Okay. So, до свидания.
До свидания.
Hey, hey to Sweden. Hey, hey. Happy Midsummersdag in Sweden.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.